session. So good afternoon. I am flying solo today. So my name is Julie Love, and I'm the Manager of Recruitment and Retention here at the Department of Revenue. And our session today is on networking. And as soon as I start to share my screen, I'm going to lose the capability of seeing your chat. So you're in the right spot. If you signed up for today's session, I'm going to share, and I'm going to flip over. The downside to this is that I can't hear you because we have to mute all panel or all invitees. So I'll have to kind of keep flipping back and forth between the two so that I can keep an eye on the chat for you. So again, today, welcome. Today's session is on networking, and it's a pleasure to have you here this afternoon for our monthly virtual call for October. And today's session is entitled How to Build and Use Your Networking Skills in Your Job Search. And from the earlier question, we got lots of great responses. So thanks to those that put some thoughts into the chat box. It really, really is about exchanging ideas. And we're going to get into this this afternoon on our session. Now, before we do that, we have some housekeeping that I want to go through. This is our monthly virtual call. If you've been on with us before, thank you for coming back. And if you're new here, welcome. We try to hold this call every month, once a month, depending on schedule and depending on hiring. So as the second bullet says, change it up each month. Sometimes we have open positions that we are recruiting for, or the position will be posted very soon. And so we'll spend that time on our monthly call talking to kind of guest speakers, people from the actual program area where the jobs are. This month we had a hot topic. We know the holidays are coming up, and networking is something that you can do anywhere with anyone, and anyone can do it. So we thought it would be good to get a jump start on the holidays so that you could put these skills and techniques into play. Normally on our monthly call, we talk a little bit about IDOR, the history of our agency, the types of jobs we have open, the hiring process. I'm not going to cover that today because this session is on networking, and I want to give us time at the end to actually network. If you are interested, we do record these each time we hold a call, and we put them on our webpage, and it is tax.illinois.gov, and it'll be in here. This particular broadcast will also be recorded and placed on our website. It usually takes about a week for the OPM team to download it and get it ready and then post it on our webpage, but usually a week, if not sooner, it'll be out there. Our November call, we don't have a date yet, but it will be on collections with our collections team here at Revenue. We are hiring 25 revenue tax specialist trainees in the collection area, and I did say 25. These are trainee titles. They are union positions. They will work in collections with our taxpayers who do owe us money. So you have a general idea of what you'd be focusing on. There are no interviews for these titles. So basically you apply once the job posts, and then if you meet the minimum qualification of having a bachelor's degree, then you would get a phone call and offered a position. So stay tuned for that. Check our webpage and check the posting page on the state of Illinois' main posting page for those job titles. They will be coming very, very soon. The last one, I would ask everyone to please be polite, and in the words of NSYNC, if you do not, you will be bye. So please adhere to the rules. Session objectives, what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to cover some basic information about networking, why do it, who can do it, how to prepare. Some people always say, do I need to prepare to network? And the answer is absolutely, you should. How to do it, and some tips to help get you through. And then how to close, how to not network, so if you don't, and then how to close in the network process. So we'll jump right into step one, and we'll get into what is networking. Networking is basically, as many of you indicated earlier, it is a process of interacting with other individuals, developing social connections. It is exchanging ideas. someone said like-minded, and I would also add with not like-minded, and we'll talk about that and why. You're exchanging information. Basically, bottom line, network is building rapport. It can drum up a lot of feelings for a lot of people. Some people really enjoy it. You think they're good at it. And think is the word there. And then other people, it just, they'd rather have a root canal than have to network. So, and we saw a little of both of that in our earlier question. Really, it is in engaging in activities that naturally encourage personal connection. That's really all networking it is. So we're going to jump in and get a little bit deeper in, do a deeper dive here. And the question is, do I have to be an extrovert to be good at it? And I want to assure all of you that no, you do not. Networking is an actual skill. It is not an innate talent. So anybody can do it and anybody can get good at it. The second bullet on here is I'm going to geek out on you just a tad bit so that you can understand some of the rationale behind it. So there's a process called cognitive flexibility, and really it is your ability to adapt your thinking rather swiftly in response to a changing situation. And if you think about situations like that might come up, it's basically thinking quickly on your feet. And that can really help you in your networking skills because it means that you can keep up with the conversation that you might be in a group of people having, and you can seek and exchange information quickly to keep that relationship forming. So I hope that makes sense. The more you do it, the better you will be at it. Now, the second area says promotion focus, and there's two thoughts behind networking. Some people go into it with a promotion focus, which is basically you strive for positive outcomes, and you really are focused on what you're doing, and you have a positive attitude around it. I want to say thank you for my coworker Brent Stice for jumping on board. So Brent, you can hear okay?
Yep, I can hear okay. I'm sorry, I'm a little late.
That's okay. Appreciate you switching over for me, and you can see the slides okay on your end?
Absolutely.
Okay. Brent is our manager of interview and selection here at Revenue, and I know he is excellent at networking, so he's probably going to have a few tips to throw in here today too. So the last three items on here, oh no, sorry. Promotion focus is what you want to have in the networking process, and a prevention focus is what you necessarily don't want to have. And that's why sometimes a lot of people don't like networking, is they have that prevention focus, and really that boils down to is a fear of rejection, that you are so afraid that other people won't want to talk to you or have anything to do with you, and really you are just petrified of being rejected. And what we want to do is overcome that. And by changing your whole attitude to a promotion focus, you are more likely to network successfully because you know you're going to have a positive outcome. And the last three bullets on there are exactly that. Your self-efficacy is the belief that you can do this. Your persistence and practice is just keep doing it. The more you do it, the better you will be at it. And being future focused. So you really want to keep your eye on the prize of why you're networking. Now, with that in mind, we're going to jump into what you need to focus on as an individual. And these are just basic common skills, but they really do. When you pay attention to them in the networking process, they will pay off for you. So again, it is a skill and you can learn how to do it. So when you focus things on being genuine, networking again is building rapport. So there's a lot of trust that goes into it. And when you're genuine, people pick up on that, just like when you pick up when people aren't genuine with you. So it's kind of a two-way street. You want to make sure that you're always genuine. The second one is practice active listening. So really you want to focus on, you're not trying to sell anything. You're not trying to focus on just
Your
you.
PowerPoint disappeared, Julie. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me switch that back over. Got it now? Yes, Brent? Yes, cool. Sorry about that. The second one is practicing active listening skills. You want to make good eye contact. You want to make sure your body language isn't your arms closed and you look like you're shut off to people. So you want to look people in the eye. If you're really engaged and you like what they're saying, your head has the natural tendency to tilt a little bit. So when you're talking to someone, and if you see that head tilt, then you know they're really engaging with you. The last one is being authentic, and it goes back to also being genuine. You want to be yourself, and you want to show genuine interest in others. I always say, be your natural self, bring your whole self, and in my case, that's bring your weird self. So if you're kind of weirded out on certain things and you're kind of you have quirks about you, that's okay. That's what makes you you, and that's what networking really is about. Let's talk a little bit about what you want to achieve through networking. So while today's focus is on your career and how you can help it, again, I cannot reiterate this enough. Networking is building rapport. It's connecting with people. It's building relationships. You can do this at any time with anyone and anywhere. So in some cases, people will strictly use it. So maybe you've lost a job and you really want to focus on finding a new job and you want to start that networking process. But you can network at many other opportunities. Right now, a lot of us have been isolated because of COVID and we haven't been getting out or socializing much. So maybe you want to use it to make some new friends, meet new people. It's a great way to utilize your networking skills. You might want to find a mentor, not only maybe someone to help you network, but maybe just someone to mentor you in a different area, your field, at school, at work. So you're going to network to find a new mentor. A great way to use networking is to get feedback. So sometimes I have crazy ideas at work and I throw those crazy ideas out to see what kind of a response I'm going to get. So you want to get feedback from other people, and that goes back to earlier, like-minded and unlike-minded people. Maybe we have the tendency to always go towards the people we know and we feel comfortable with. And sometimes it's good to get out of your comfort zone and meet individuals that you know maybe normally wouldn't, because they're going to give you ideas and thoughts that are different than you're used to getting. And that's how you increase that cognitive flexibility that we talked about earlier, thinking about things from a different perspective. And then you get into exploring job opportunities and career growth. It expands networking, expands your social circles, and ultimately that means more interactions with different types of people. So growing your network, increasing the types of people you have in there, and growing your professional network is probably the most talked about in career growth, but networking can be used for other areas. Just basically improving your conversations. So the skills that we talked about earlier, the active listening, the body communication, and your being genuine and being authentic. So lots of different reasons to do it. Talk quickly about how to get started in the networking process. So yes, you can create a networking plan. I know many people that actually have spreadsheets, elaborate spreadsheets. They have a Word document. They have a database with names in it and notes of when they contacted people and who they contacted and what they're going to follow up on. So you can go very, very elaborate in this. You can just simply sit and think and make some notes on your calendar for today's date kind of thing. So you do what feels good to you. But the idea is you do want to sit down for a few minutes and really think about the networking process. So you might want to start making a list of all the people that you know. It could be your friends and family at first, but then think about distant relatives. Think about coaches and teachers you had in high school, you've had in college, maybe extracurricular sports that you are involved with that you might know people, any mentors or advisors you've had through school, your education, or professionally, any community leaders or volunteer people that you've met over the course of your lifetime. You really want to stop and think about all of those different people. And what we call dormant ties are people that maybe you haven't connected with for the last couple of years, but those are the people that you might want to go through your email, business cards, old emails that, oh yeah, I remember I got an email 3 years ago from my friend Johnny, and I want to check and see what he's been up to lately. So I send my friend Johnny just a quick email and say, hey, I was just thinking about you. Haven't heard from you in a while. How have you been? Quick, simple, easy little email, and it gets that dialogue going again. So reconnecting with that person then exposes you to that person's network. I think the rule is, you make a list of 10 people that you want to reach out to, and then you get 10 new contacts from those 10 people. So you just keep growing that list over time, and eventually you will have quite a pool of people that you can reach out to. Think about what your career goals are. Am I searching for a job right now? I might not be ready right now to make a change, but I might want to reach out to people I know in industry and ask them, hey, I'm thinking about in 6 months making a change. Do you know somebody in our network that might be helpful for me to visit with when how to transition into this new job? Think about the value that I can bring. I have 40 years of HR experience. I've helped people with resumes and networking and interviewing in all of those 40 years. So what could I add to or bring? Where could I bring value? Think about what you have to offer. So when you network, you can say, oh gosh, I would really like to help your class out on HR management out at UIS or at one of the local community colleges, and I can help students with that. And then set some goals. What do you want to get out of networking? Is it really to just meet new people? Is it to find someone in your industry? Is it to get a mentor? Is it to find a different position? Is it basically just to meet people? And last, but think about the best way to contact you. Are you an email person? Do you have something readily available that you could hand someone? And say, hey, here's my email address. You can follow up with me here. Are you social? I'm on X, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, and you can find me on all the different socials. So think about the best way for individuals to contact you. Now, here's a question for the chat. Should you only network when you're actively looking for a job? And I shared some of this information earlier. And if the answers in the chat are no, absolutely not, then you are correct. You don't want to just think about doing it when you are looking for a position. And there's a couple of different reasons why, depending on the situation, on why you are looking for a new job. If you're being proactive and you're coming at it as I'm going to retire or start looking in a year when my kids are done with college, or when my kids have graduated from high school, or when I've retired, you've got a little time, you're a little more relaxed. If I've just lost my job today, I am in 100% panic mode. And my whole philosophy on networking is going to be different in those two scenarios. So you really don't want to wait until you have to do it. You want to start practicing your skills and really feeling comfortable with it, because that's really what it comes down to, way before you need to use those networking skills. Now let's talk a little bit about where you can do it. So most people think of networking, and the first thing that pops to mind is a conference. You go to a conference in your industry. It might be the Society for Human Resource Management annual conference with 16,000 people. It might be a conference in your trade industry. It might just be a business meeting, a fundraiser, a chamber event. That's what most people think of when they think about networking. But there really is more to it than that, in so many more places that you can do it. Yes, social media, you can network on there, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a couple more slides. But you can use platforms like LinkedIn, particularly LinkedIn. That's an excellent one to start there. You want to share your insights and engage with other contacts on social media, no matter what platform you use. You want to attend those events. We talked about industry-wide events that we've talked about, but just make sure that you don't leave it at that. Everything from the grocery store to public transportation to the gym. Being good at networking is being comfortable with talking to strangers. That's all it comes down to. And while you think about how sometimes fearful you are of doing it, people on the other end are just as fearful. So the more you do it with other people, the more you help yourself and the more you help them. This morning I walked into our building with a gentleman I'd never seen before. He didn't know me and I didn't know him, but we came up the steps and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "Fine." I said, "What's new and exciting in your world?" One of my favorite ways to engage people. And he kind of looked at me like, "I don't know you." He said, "Well, not too much." And I said, "Well, are you watching the World Series?" And he said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "How about you?" And I said, "Well, I'm a Cardinal fan, so I really don't have a team in there, but it's been kind of exciting." And that led us to talk all the way down to the elevators about the Dodgers and their key player who got hurt and da 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 da. I didn't know this guy until this morning. I still don't know his name, but we engaged in a conversation. You can do that at the gym. You can do that in line at the grocery store. You can do that any place, at your kids' school functions. Um, you can think of so many different places where you can see people you don't know and just strike up a conversation. Now, here's one thing that you will always be encouraged to do, and that's prepare your elevator pitch. So usually in an industry event, someone will say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. Hi, I'm so-and-so. And what are you interested in, or what's your story?" So you want to have your elevator pitch. You want to be able to have a couple of sentences that you can feel very confident and comfortable sharing. So I will share with you my quick elevator pitch. And it would go something like this. "Well, hi, I'm Julie. I'm in the HR profession. I have over 35 years. This was a while ago. Now it's up to 41. But I have 41 years of experience in all aspects of human resources, from talent acquisition to employee relations, performance management, and org development." Pause, take a little breath there for a second. "I'm very passionate about creating inclusive workplace cultures that focus on engagement, employees' well-being. In fact, recently I became a certified health and wellness coach, and this really allows me to focus on building strong relationships and fostering an environment where both the employees and the organization can thrive." Now, they may have follow-up questions on me on that, or they may not. They may change the subject totally, and that's okay. But I have a couple of sentences in my back pocket ready to go to tell someone who I am and kind of what I'm about. So I would encourage you to spend some time in your networking plan to think about your elevator pitch and kind of get that ready to go, so that when you meet people and you get asked that question, that you are ready to go. A few more on where you can do it. So clubs or organizations that you might either be part of or you might join to start networking. So these might be a hobby club, it might be a professional organization. Again, you can use online platforms to engage, like LinkedIn or virtual networking events that might be happening. You can conduct some information, what we call informational interviews. And they don't have to be anything super specific, but if you see someone on LinkedIn that you are really curious about how they got into the role that they're in, there is absolutely nothing wrong with sending them a quick message. And it could be something as simple as this: "Hey, your professional journey really stood out to me. I'm a new health and wellness coach, and I'm really curious in building my career. And since you have a great deal of experience in that position, I was wondering if you might have some time to offer me some advice or some tips around how to really expand my market around health and wellness coaching. I'm curious how you got to where you are today, and I'd really appreciate a brief call at your convenience, or a few minutes of your time, whatever you feel comfortable with. Let me know if you're open to chatting." Now, if you never hear from this person, that's okay. You tried, you extended that olive branch. They might respond back and say, "Yeah, I have 5 minutes and I'd love to help you." And that is a great way for you to meet someone in your industry or expand your network. So the big burning question is, does it really work? And here are just a few stats that confirm, yes, it does. So when it comes to career, networking is the most successful way of finding a meaningful job and attaining career success. That second bullet in red says 85% of jobs are filled through networking. Now, I will say this caveat with the state of Illinois: it is not so much who you know. We keep the hiring process very um, streamlined. So it is not who you know as far as getting the job. However, You all know me now. If you have questions about jobs that I could help you with, you could always reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I see this job posted and I'm curious about it. Do you know anything about it? I might not, but I know the person over at Do It or DHS that might be posted that job and could maybe answer your questions for you. So the third bullet is 80% of professionals find networking essential to career success. When I prepared this presentation and thought back to the 6 different places that I have worked in my entire 41 careers, 5 of the 6 places that I have worked, I got, or I don't want to say I got my job because I got my job on my own, but I found out about the job from someone that worked there or clued me into an opening. So it does work. It does pay off. 100% of the people during this SHRM SHRM survey believe face-to-face meetings build stronger long-term relationships, and I would agree with that. And 40% more want networking more often. So they really enjoy it, they find value in it, and they want to keep doing it. Step 3 in our objectives today, we're transitioning into look at me, I'm networking. So being on this call today, you're going to be talking and chatting with people on here. And if you are open to meeting new friends, you can drop your LinkedIn site on here and people can go find you. But also think about your setting and what you're in. So let's use our example of a networking industry. So I have an event I have to go to tonight at work. It's at 5 o'clock and it will be with other HR professionals. And I automatically know that there are going to be clusters of people. When you walk in, you register, you put your name tag on, and you're going to see little clusters of people standing around. Here's a great tip I learned years and years ago. Look for that odd group of people because you know there's somebody in that group, that odd one person who's not engaging in dialogue that might be open, that if you walked up and joined that group to say, hey, I'm Julie, how you doing? And that person says, hey, I'm Rob, nice to meet you. And then you can kind of at least ease your way into that conversation. So you want to look for maybe groups of 3, 5, 7 where there's an odd number and someone might not be engaging in the conversation to kind of walk up and start listening to and possibly dialoguing with that group. Another idea is to look for what we call lateral connections within your company. If I am interested in doing training for my organization, but I'm not in a training role, I might reach out to my training team here and say, hey, I'm really interested in gaining a position in the training environment. Do you have any tips that you might be willing to share with me to help me get my foot in the door? So think about others in your industry that are in positions like yourself, but might be at a different company that you might want to reach out to and make a connection with. You know, it can be as silly as look for someone that's wearing something similar to you, a similar color, a similar jacket type, a plaid jacket, a blue dress, something to help you break the ice. Because getting started and finishing are oftentimes the 2 hardest things in the networking process. So keep that in mind. You're going to see a question on that in a minute. And if you go to an event with friends, see if they know other people. So don't just stand with your friend. I go to my event tonight, I go with my friend Brent, and the 2 of us stand there and we talk to each other the entire time. So we don't work the room, we don't circulate. What you can really do that helps is when you go together, say, Brent, do you know anybody here? And Brent says, yeah, there's my friend, um, Leroy. And I say, oh, great. So I'm going to go over and we're going to go meet his friend Leroy that I've never met before. And so there's a connection that I made. And then I'm going to say, hey, Brent, my friend Veronica's here. Let's go talk to her and see what's new with her. So if you are going to go to an event with someone or you see someone there you know already, make sure you capitalize on that connection and ask them, is there anybody here you might be interested in meeting that I might know that I could introduce you to, and vice versa. I had another friend that this is something you may or may not be interested in, but I always found it kind of humorous. So when I go to events now, I always keep him in the back of my mind. He was extremely introverted. big gamer, and played a lot of video games. And the way he got around networking is he started, when he would go to an event, pretend that he was playing a video game, and he would actually kind of convert himself to a very extroverted character in one of his video games, and then he would pretend like he was scoring points for every person that he met. Now, he did it in a professional manner, but that's how he eased into the process of networking and meeting new people at an event. And I always just thought that was kind of funny. So I think of him often. Okay, so here's what we call a framework. This is something that you can use at any opportunity. So you want to think about something that's maybe been in the news, and in this case, it's a story. So here's how this would work. I'm going to my event tonight and I meet someone, and the conversation is kind of idle. Hey, I'm Julie. Hey, I'm Brent. There's some things we're not going to do. We're going to get to that, I think, next slide. But if there's a lull in that conversation, or I've asked a question and I feel like I've just completely exhausted the conversation around what was your favorite subject in college or something around that, I might say, hey, did you hear about that 6-year-old boy who's raking in $11 million for testing toys on YouTube? That is a safe question. There's a high probability that Brent saw that story because I know he watches YouTubes. It gives you, if the person says no, then I'm going to give maybe a 30 or 45-second overview of that topic, of that intro. Oh yeah, this kid made his career. He's 11 years old, but he started like testing out toys on YouTube, and then he got picked up, and now he has like 50 billion people that follow him. Now, I'm going to pause after 30, 45 seconds. And if they ask questions, well, what state's this kid from? Or where does he live? Or what's his favorite toy? If they ask me a question and keep the conversation going, that's great. If they don't, then that's my pause then to know I could ask them a question. Yeah, that's kind of cool. If you were going to create a YouTube channel, what would it be about? And I would say, well, cooking, of course, because I'm a foodie and I love to cook. What about you, Brent? What would your YouTube station be about? Brent's would be sports, something like that, I'm guessing. So now you're here. I'm at my event tonight, and a bunch of people I don't know. And as I said, getting started, it's sometimes the hardest part. The next couple of slides, which I'm going to put these in a PDF and put them out on our webpage so that you have these and you don't have to write them all down. These are what we call great starters for networking. It is an intro sentence that might help break the ice. And a lot of these, I won't read them all to you, but I want to highlight a couple of them so that you can see the difference. So some of them are very industry related. So if I go to my industry event tonight, I might meet someone who I really want to learn more about how they got into health and wellness coaching. So I would say, what advice would you give to someone like me who's just got started? Um, who do you recommend that I connect with here is a great question, so that you can kind of gauge how many people they know at the event and other people who they might be willing to introduce you to. What do you enjoy most about your work? It's a simple question. Now we want to spend 2 seconds here on talking about questions, the difference between closed and open. So open, obviously their answer could be a thesis long. Hopefully it won't be, but closed are those questions that really shut down the conversation. So are you here by yourself? Yes. There's nothing really you can kind of expand on. It's a little bit harder. So you do want to make sure you have some open end, and there could be a couple of closed end questions. I'm not saying you'll never use them, but you want to make sure you have more open than closed. So this next one is, what inspired you to get into your field? Great question. People love talking about how they found what they do, and it's a great way to segue into then additional questions. Here's something, kind of what projects are you working on right now? Or what skills do you think are essential for someone in our industry? This is a little more personal, so depending on your venue and where you are, what's a recent success or achievement that you're proud of? So that one is a little bit more personal. So they might have to think about that for a little bit, or they might not want to share. But if it's someplace where you kind of know people, so maybe it's at Thanksgiving, and it's your Uncle John, who's an extrovert, my cousin's husband, Matt, who is painfully shy. So sometimes these are questions that you could ask people that you might know a little more, but at least to break the ice to get something kind of going. One I love are, what trends do you see shaping the future of our industry? What's happening with AI right now in HR? What do you see in your company that AI really might impact? Now, they might say, I don't know anything about AI, and it shuts the conversation down. Or they might say, wow, I really think it's going to, in the benefit enrollment process, really eliminate, a lot of extra steps in enrollment because, AI can do that now. I mentioned this earlier, what did you like about college? It's an open-ended question, but they might say nothing. So you just want to make sure that if they do, that you have something fired back up. So did you play sports in college? Were you in any clubs in college? And kind of keep it going that way. How do you stay updated in industry trends? Is a good one as well. It's a great way for you to learn more about the industry and about that person, and it might be a way for them to introduce you to other individuals in the industry. A great one if you are traveling out of town or new to the area. So where do you recommend I go while I'm here? We were in Chicago last week. We were talking to coworkers that we normally don't talk with, and it was easy to say, hey, where do we recommend we get dinner tonight in the city? Or if you're at that event, how did you hear about the event? So again, these are sometimes industry specific if you're at an event. It could be, which keynote speaker would you like to listen to or hear present? Or it could be, if you could have anyone come to Thanksgiving dinner and sit next to them and visit, who would it be? So there's a variety of questions here to help get you going. Now, segue into step 4, how not to network and how to close. So our last step, this is sometimes the very hardest part for some, if not all. It can feel very awkward on closing. Before we get to that, so think about some closes that you've used in the past that you might want to suggest to others here. We're going to talk briefly about a few basic rules. Now, there is a trend right now that many young adults, so these would be probably generation, let's see, XYZs, maybe some X's, maybe some Z's, maybe some alphas, that are using dating sites to actually network and just meet people. They're not there to date, but they would just like to expand their social circle. That is a trend right now happening all across the United States. I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about, you go to an event, I go to my event tonight, and someone comes up and just vagrantly starts flirting with me. That's not what this event is about, so don't do it there. You want to maintain professional relationships. Depending on why you're there, if I'm there to find a job, you don't want to come across that way. The second is negative comments. Oh my God, can you believe the food? It was awful. Is not a great way to start a conversation with someone at a networking event. Or, my gosh, this event is so disorganized. If I were the planning person, I would have done this so much better. Don't start off on something negative, trying to meet someone new for the first time. Sales pitch. So I get this question a lot is, well, I'm in sales, so, and I go to networking events to sell my product, right? So isn't that what this is about? No, not necessarily. If you're at a sales conference and you're there to go around to meet other people and go to their booths and people come and you're selling at your booth, absolutely. You can still network on the side, but your job there is sales. But if I go to my event tonight and I have a side hustle, a bakery at home, because I love to bake, and I go there and try to sell my cupcakes to everyone. That's not what this is about. So you want to make sure that you keep any kind of sales pitch that you might normally do kind of in check. It's about networking and building connections. And the last one, obviously, is controversial topics. So right now, we all know there's an election coming up. That is not the topic that you want to start with. So, hey, who are you voting for? That's a pretty quick way to shut down a conversation. So make sure it's nothing controversial. You want to keep it light. You want to keep it professional. You want to keep the conversation going. So that's why you don't want to bring up some of these. Now, this next one, I'm going to ask if you take nothing out, nothing away from this presentation today, that you would please, please, please do me this service and not ask these standard questions. So many times we go to events and the first thing we want to say is, can you help me find a job? I lost my job yesterday. I got downsized. Can you help me? This really puts people on the spot, and it really does not help build rapport between the two people. Now, if you dialogue, you open up, and at some point in time they say, hey, what do you do? Where do you work? And it's halfway through the conversation, then you can say, well, recently I was let go and I'm looking for other opportunities. If you hear of anything you think I might be a good fit for, I would appreciate it if you would keep me in mind for that. So that's kind of a great way to put that out there, but don't start with it. The same thing with what do you do? That statement comes off as very judgmental, because if you're a nuclear physicist and I am a low-level HR person for the state of Illinois, I might really be put off by your expertise, your education, and the projects that you've worked on. You've sent someone to Mars recently. And so it really can change the dynamic of the conversation. So as much as possible, please do not start with, what do you do? You can start with any of those other conversation starters and get going. And then as it evolves, or if they ask you, you can answer, and then you can always say, what about you? But please don't start. These are two questions that I've actually had people ask me. Well, why haven't you moved up the ladder faster? It's kind of off-putting. Maybe I really love my job, which I do, and I don't want to move up. So I'm pretty quite content where I am. So that shuts down the conversation rather quickly. And why did you leave your last job? If you're curious, there are better ways to ask. So I understand you recently left ABC company and you moved on. Were you looking for more of a challenge in your new position that you have now? So there are better ways to ask that question if you really want to know about someone versus why did you leave your last position? So we've talked a couple of times about closing. And so for a lot of people, this is the hardest part of networking. So we're at our event tonight. I've mingled with a couple of different people. I've exhausted. I've used those sentence starters. I'm using good eye contact. I'm listening attentively. I'm being my authentic self. I'm talking about food, or I'm talking about travel. And we get to that point where you just are done with the conversation. Whether you've run out of things to talk to about, or whether this person just isn't anyone that you want to continue to have a dialogue with. So you're at that end. So drop in the chat box if you have a favorite way to close a conversation. And I'll share a few with you. And again, these are actual closes that I have either done myself or someone has shared with me. Case in point, the very first one. So I had a gentleman once, after having what I thought was a fabulous conversation, look at me and say, well, you know, we've just about exhausted the end of this topic. What else you got? Very spot on, to the point. I appreciated his directness. It might be a little too much for you. So if that's the case, you might want to look at some of what our other attendees have shared with you, or you can use any of these. I'm afraid I'm going to have to be leaving in the next few minutes, but I do want to hear the end of your story. Can you share briefly with me how you wrapped up that trip? So then you've put that person on notice that you're going to have to leave, and then you can say, gosh, I loved hearing about your trip. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your time this evening, and best of luck to you. If you're at that point where you just don't know what to talk about, but you like the person, but you want to keep going, bring something up neutral. In downstate, it would be, hey, how about the Cardinals? How do you think the year went and who are they going to recruit for next year? What positions are they going to be looking for? Or how's that general manager working out? Think about something that's not the weather, but something that you could engage them on. It might be, did you go to Lollapalooza over the summer or did you go to the festival in Bucktown? I don't know. Something that happened recently in your community, but it's just a great way to kind of transition the conversation. You can always use, I'm going to go get a drink. Can I bring one back for you? And they're either going to say, no, I'm good. And then that kind of gives you the break to go on and get a drink and maybe talk to someone else. Or it could say, hey, I'm going to go up and get a beverage. Do you want to walk up there and get one with me? And then there are going to be other people in line getting a beverage that you could possibly start talking to or bring those individuals into your conversation. So it's a great way to expand your conversation. One that's always very nice and appreciative is you're talking, Britt and I are talking, and I say, oh, I see Kirby. I want to go talk to her about her trip to Universal because I know she just went on a big vacation there. Let me introduce you to her because I know you guys share the love of football. So it's a great way to get someone else into the conversation and expand the topics. Going back to that cognitive flexibility, talk about things outside you normally would to increase your awareness. And the last one is just pretty simple. Thanks for visiting with me, Brent. I learned a great deal from you, and I really appreciate your time tonight. Take care. It was nice meeting you. You shake their hand and you move on and you go find someone else to talk to. Okay, today, last three on closing, a couple of last final ones. If this is someone that you have really enjoyed visiting with, they have some great ideas, some great connections, you might want to ask them, hey, can we keep in touch? I'd really like to keep you in my network so that if I could reach out to you in the future and ask some additional questions about whatever it is. Do you have a business card that I might have? And they might say, no, we don't do business cards anymore, but I'm on LinkedIn. You could find me there. Great. So use that social media as best you can. The one thing you want to do is avoid being very pushy or kind of transactional. Hey, I want to make sure I get your name and number so I can call you next week and ask you about. You don't want to come off as desperate and you don't want to be too pushy. You want to have balance. You want to strengthen the connection, not force it, is kind of the end on the closing process. So now you're at the end of your event. You want to think about how you did, what you did well, how many connections maybe you made, who you're going to help. Oh, I need to follow up with Dave tomorrow and send him that list of restaurants in Utah. He's going on vacation there soon. And I told him I would send him a couple of recommendations there. Or, oh, I forgot I was going to send out the PowerPoint to some individuals that I met on an event recently. So think about your assignments, your to-do list. Think about your networking plan. Did you make any progress on your plan? Did you meet 5 new people, 100 new people, whatever your goal was? Did you make a new friend? So think about and reflect after your event about what went well. Oh, I think I did really good at introducing other people to other people I knew, but I really need to work stronger on asking other people to introduce me to other people. So think about it and think about where you could maybe change things up at the next event. And then go home and be very proud of yourself because you just went to a networking event and maybe you met 10 new people tonight at your event. So with that in mind, we're going to check and make sure that we met our session objectives. We talked about networking, what it is. It's building mutual connections. It's thinking outside your box or expanding your network to other individuals that can help you grow and learn. Preparing for it. Think about what your objectives are in networking and why you want to do it. Actually, some tips on how to get out there and do it. So think of some of those sentence starters. Have 1 or 2 of them in your pocket ready to go. And think about your elevator pitch. Have that ready to go. Even if you don't have it perfected, 1 or 2 sentences just to get something out. And then how not to network. Remember the reason you're doing it and be professional and kind. And also think about a couple of closes maybe that you got today or that you've used before that you really like, and make it more comfortable when you're closing or leaving that conversation from one person to the next. So with that in mind, I am going to wrap up. Questions that we have, I would invite you to keep in touch. Let's keep networking. You can go out to the socials. The biggest one is LinkedIn. If you find me out there, connect with me. I am happy to make a connection with you. If you have specific questions, maybe how to network in a particular industry that might be hard for you, I may not know the answer, but I am most definitely happy to help in any way that I can. And make sure that you check back for job postings at taxillinois.gov. That's where this presentation will be posted when we're done. So go out to our website and make sure that you share or look for job postings. That collection job will be posted sometime in November. I'm going to guess it would be in the first 3 weeks. So probably not it won't be posted for the first time the week of Thanksgiving. So it might still be up that week, but we probably would post it like the week of the 11th or sometime that week and then go 10 days after. So I hope that makes sense. Questions that you have for either Brent or myself. Brent, anything that you can think of that I missed in the presentation today?
No, I think that was really good. I was just going to reiterate kind of what you said. I used to work in a private industry for 23 years, same company, a lot of people, and I like to network. I talk to people, and there's a guy that typically isn't someone that I would usually talk to at all. And I just struck up a conversation with him and told him if he ever wanted to talk to reach out, because I try to be authentic and bold. And he called me and wanted to do lunch, and we sat and had a 1 hour lunch, and he was seeking feedback. And then a year later, he had left and went to the state of Illinois and got a really good job, and called me up about a year after that, just thinking of me. And he found a job that he thought I'd be interested in. And here I am today. And it was just from the simple, give me a phone call and anytime, and I'll be authentic and talk. And the other thing, you're talking about mentorship. A lot of people get lost with mentors as far as they think their mentors have to be authority leaders, their bosses and teachers. One of my greatest mentors was a vendor of mine that had just kind of been there and done that through his life. And I talked to him 3, 4 days a week and just pick his brain and how he navigated through life. So it don't have to be an authoritative figure. A mentor could just be about anyone that you can relate to and you aspire to be like. So
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Brent. And you are spot on that. So we did have a question earlier from Jacqueline. I don't know if it got answered, but I did mention that you have to have a bachelor's degree for the trainee titles, and yes, you do. So if you're still on here, I hope you get that question answered. The job postings that I referenced for collections that are coming up, again, there are 25 openings. Those will be coming up in November, and it's a February 3rd, I believe, start date for that. So yeah, looking for you guys
I
have
had
some.
I had a really good question earlier. Let me find it from Rob. And he said, if you want to know what someone does for work, what are you supposed to ask instead of what do you do?
Well, there's a lot of ways you can get around that. So and I don't mean that you can never ask that question, just don't start with it is what I'm suggesting. So even if you go to an event or you're standing in line someplace, let's say you're at an event. I'm at my event tonight and I walk up and I say, hi, I'm Julie, and you say, hi, I'm Brent, and I say, wow, what an event. Can you believe the turnout? And Brent goes, yeah, I know, right? There's a lot of people here. Gosh, I guess a lot of people really want to learn more about HR. What do you think? Yeah, I came for the free food. Oh, okay. And you let it kind of ease into that Where are you working? Well, I came here because I work at Revenue and I'm trying to find people for the jobs that I'm recruiting for. Oh, what do you do at Revenue? Well, I'm the recruitment manager of recruitment and retention. Oh, wow, that's great. Do you like your job? Yeah. And then 5 minutes later, you're into that conversation, and I say to Brent, so Brent, remind me where it was again you told me you worked? So a lot of times it's okay to ask where they work, but not necessarily what they do. And there's pros and cons. Really, in the networking process, you have to come down to what feels natural to you. But really, you just want to make sure that you don't start every conversation with someone on, well, what do you do? What job do you do? It just really puts people kind of on the spot, and it doesn't um, encourage further dialogue, because if I'm a little embarrassed right now, well, I want to be an actress, but right now I'm a bartender and I really don't want people to know that. That's not the first thing I want to start with. So I would rather you ask me about, what's my favorite hobby, or, do I know anybody else at this conference, before I have to say, well, I'm a bartender because I'm trying to get into acting. So you see, it just kind of puts people on edge a little bit. And so I'm not saying don't ever ask, just don't start with that. I hope that makes sense.
I'm sorry, I have to drop off. I have another meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brent. Um, yeah, and it looks like we have some great closes on here. So thank you all so much for sharing those. I appreciate your input. Again, we will post this on our webpage. It's tax.illinois.gov, and it takes the team about a week to get it out there. It might be a few days less. I have to wait for WebEx to send me the recording, and then once I get it, I send it to the another team, and they compress it and unzip it and do all that stuff they do to it, and then they put it out there on the page. So it'll take them a little bit of time. I want to thank everybody for your time this afternoon, and please check back. We'll have another one of these in November about those collection calls. So make sure you check back to our webpage, tax.illinois.gov, or you can follow us on social media. So thank you. Have a great afternoon. Make sure you get out there and network. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.